Welcome back to New Rockstars. I'm Erik Voss, and this is a breakdown of the trailer for Star Wars Skeleton Crew, a new 8-episode Star Wars series coming December 3rd, following 4 kids from a suburban New Republic era swept away in an 80s Amblin-style space pirate adventure. I'm gonna break down all the details you might have missed from this trailer, who this mystery skeleton could be, and this show's very weird connection to Captain EO, as well as an explanation of what Captain EO is. And yes, I am now officially back after a week off attending to a personal matter. Thank you so much to everyone at New Rockstars for covering D23 and all the other big news over the past week. This is my first video that I've shot upon my return after packing up my old home studio and relocating to New Rockstars HQ. So you're gonna see me a lot more on screen with everybody else, also on the break room, and other new projects that we're gonna be announcing in the coming months. But this first video being shot from home base, being Skeleton Crew, just feels so right, because one of my first ever videos on New Rockstars was a breakdown of Stranger Things Season 1, and a year ago I revisited Amblin films like E.T. and The Goonies over on the Deep Dive channel, and I feel like a lot of the deeper themes of those stories are totally baked into my DNA as a YouTube movie analyzer, and I kind of feel like Skeleton Crew might have been designed just for me. I'm sure a lot of you feel that way too. So let's jump into this trailer.
Tomorrow's test will set the course of your entire future.
Okay, we open on this character named Wim, played by Ravi Cabot-Conyers, who actually voiced Antonio for Encanto. He's laying in bed, looking up at his ships, hanging like mobiles as light passes through the window and casts their shadows on the ceiling. And a little detail, I'm pretty sure on his bed sheets are some red X-Wings. So when people talk about movies and shows having an Amblin vibe, what do they really mean by that? Well, it actually means a lot of things, but one element that I don't know if people realize when they're saying this is the element of light. One of the things that made Steven Spielberg such an innovator in the 1970s and 1980s was the way he would expose shots with dynamic lighting in the background, coming in through windows, covering parts of actors' faces, angling light in weird ways to cast really interesting shadows. He understood that there was a certain magic to light that could make things like kids' toys and miniatures feel life-sized and real. And that concept is what inspired the company ILM, Industrial Light and Magic, to widen the scale of something that was just shot as a miniature using a tactic as simple as casting a light in the right direction. So here, Wim seeing the shadows dance on the ceiling is something that's simple but so effective. It makes us wonder, what is the light that's on the outside of this window to cause this? Is it the light of a parent coming home late from a difficult job pulling into the driveway? Is it the light of a police car that found out about something that he did? And just as visual recalls the light hitting Elliot's bedroom figurines in E.T., or the toys coming to life in Poltergeist, a movie that was credited to Tobe Hooper but was totally shadow directed by Steven Spielberg. And of course, toys in Star Wars like Luke's T-16 Skyhopper toy. But the character of Wim is very much like Elliot in E.T., as well as Mikey in The Goonies, Gorday in Stand By Me, Ethan Hawke's character Ben in 1985's Explorers, Mike Wheeler or Will Byers in Stranger Things, just the nerdy dreamer who thinks too big for his world. His name, Wim, could even be intentional to reflect his whole spirit, one who leaps off to adventure on a whim. But these ships look hand-painted and the paint is wearing down, probably figurines that Wim built and painted himself, like Pinewood Derby cars, meaning that the New Republic might not even be manufacturing or selling toys like this, probably an attempt to move on from the wars of the past. Wim looks out the back of a bus, looking like a school bus. He's sitting beside Neil, who's played by Robert Timothy Smith. Neil seems to be a species similar to an Ortolan, the same race as Max Rebo from Return of the Jedi, but Max didn't have arms like this, so Neil would have to be a subspecies that does have arms. This bus hovers through what seems to be our first look at a live-action Star Wars suburb. While you could say that this isn't Star Wars, it's a logical expansion to say that a universe that has an urban cityscape of Coruscant, a city that has apartment housing that we saw in Andor in Mandalorian Season 3, as well as plenty of agricultural settlements, would also have a middle-class residential community that looks something like our world. But notice how this suburb street descends to a lower level, which I assume would be a ramp to a freeway grid, but one that goes underground as opposed to above-ground highways. This tells us that it's really important to this planet to maintain the surface-level facade of a suburb to give the residents some peace of mind. What I'm really getting at is suburbs in our world are not like an organic development, they're actually artificial creations that resulted from social policy, urban planning, redlining, white flight. It's a relatively modern post-war phenomenon in which society has tried to forget the troubles of the past and then of course procreate to build a booming economy. And really those themes of suburbia are what the Amblin films were also about. Families in the suburbs feeling trapped in these sanitized Potemkin villages that are designed to look perfect but actually cover up dark forces from from nature and history that are impossible to keep out. In E.T., it was an alien child that healed a fatherless family. In Goonies, it was a pirate treasure findable only by local townies called Goonies, threatened by rich outsiders taking over Astoria. In Poltergeist, it was suburbanization that displaced human remains that created the cursed nightmare scenario. The kids of these families feel that falseness on a deeper level than their parents do, and they long for escape because really that's how Steven Spielberg felt as a kid in suburban Arizona. We see these students sitting in this huge room, clusters of desks, 4 wide, 5 deep, so 20 desks per cluster. By my count, there are 9 clusters, so like at least 180 desks. I assume they're sitting a standardized test. You can see proctor droids rolling among the desks, perhaps to patrol some cheating. But yeah, that's a lot of students. It reminds me of like an SAT or an AP exam that are often held in high school gyms. Like this could be a New Republic test that sorts students into what careers they'll have. We know this is set around the same time as The Mandalorian and Ahsoka, and we know that society will get taken over by the First Order a couple decades after this. In the Ahsoka series, we learned that many of the workers like on Corellia were still sympathetic to the Empire. This teacher wears a blue cape, which looks like it's part of the New Republic wardrobe worn by the government workers in the Ahsoka series, as well as the teachers in the school on Navarro after Grief Karga began to revitalize it in Mandalorian Season 2. The student uniforms have these interesting patches that are probably part of the New Republic education system in the name of the school. We actually get a better look at this patch later on Neil. It looks like an autumn tree leaf behind a black symbol and some Orbesh around the crest. Skeleton Crew's updates on Twitter reposted an image from a jacket that was found on eBay, posted by this Redditor, and translated the Orbesh to Atatin Middle School Gamma. And in that shot of the big room with all the desks, there is actually one empty desk in the bottom of the frame. I assume that desk belongs to Wim, skipping this test for adventure. Ryan Kiera Armstrong plays Fern, who seems like the rebellious spirit of the group, kind of like Tatum O'Neal's character in The Bad News Bears. We later see her driving a speeder bike and veering through traffic with KB. Ryan Kiera Armstrong played young Antonia Dreykov from Marvel's Black Widow. All right, on to the next section.
Don't you ever want to do anything exciting? Like what? What if we could go anywhere we want in the whole galaxy? A real adventure. No more pretend.
So this comes from John Watts, who directed Spider-Man Homecoming, Spider-Man Far From Home, and Spider-Man No Way Home for Marvel and for Sony. And really his best contributions to those films was the authentic chemistry he was able to bring out of the performances from the young actors, something that seems to be the case here. Fern and KB zip across this bridge, and it looks like it is over a man-made runoff river, kind of like the LA River in Los Angeles County, famous from the chase sequences in Terminator 2 Judgment Day. Maybe I'm just getting that vibe from the ridge of the hills in the background, but it very much looks like the LA Basin / San Fernando Valley to me. All of this just feels very built up and manufactured. Like it's not a natural river. They had to build it because they paved so much of this terrain that they needed the water to go somewhere. The cars, you'll notice, look like these bulky 1950s Oldsmobile designs that were popular in the post-World War II years. So the suburb design that they're going for is definitely one inspired by America, specifically in the 1950s. In this shot, Wim trips past an elderly Ithorian woman with this barking canine. The street curving and sloping downward like this and the sun being so low in the sky totally reminds me of the hilly neighborhood street that Elliot lives on in E.T. A Wim boots up a cartoon display of a Jedi facing a large beast. I want to say that Jedi might have a Padawan braid, but think about it. To the character of Wim, the Jedi are figures of myth. The Imperial propaganda must still be in place, and the New Republic doesn't seem to be contesting it. This is how we get to Rey in the sequel trilogy thinking that Luke Skywalker was a piece of folklore until Han Solo finally says, it's true, all of it. So I wonder if this Jedi with the green saber could be some storybook version of Luke Skywalker fighting the Rancor in Return of the Jedi. This creature doesn't seem like a Rancor to me, but maybe the myth could have gotten bastardized like a game of telephone. And yes, the bed sheets do have red X-Wings. Of course, Luke Skywalker piloted his X-Wing in the Red Squadron, and it's kind of like Mikey in the Goonies having Superman bed sheets as a reference to director Richard Donner's previous work of Superman the movie and Superman 2. All right, on to the next clip.
I found something buried in the woods. What do you think it is?
I think it's a lost Jedi temple.
Okay, this section is classic Stand By Me and E.T. Group of kids finding something buried in the woods. Stand By Me, of course, centers around the 4 kids going off on a trek to find a dead body in the woods until Kiefer Sutherland pulls out a switchblade. And we see this cool shot of KB just lowering her visor, ready to go. Before this trailer, some thought that this might have been part of her anatomy. She might be like a cyborg, but it's just some cool tech that she wears, kind of like Steph with the glasses and Goonies, or Michael's friend Steve when he lowers his sunglasses before the bike chase like they were goggles. Wim and Neil push their hover bikes into the woods slowly, like they have to like trudge it through the stems and the roots and all that stuff. And I love it. The sun is low in the sky. It does feel like a scene that we might have seen in Stranger Things, but it's Stranger Things. So everything in Stranger Things is like something that you saw from an 80s movie like E.T. with Elliot and Mike pushing their bikes through the woods. Now a hatch opens and Wim assumes it's a lost Jedi temple. Now, of course, this is not a Jedi temple. It's just a kid thinking that this crashed ship is a Jedi temple. And I think that's the idea. Wim is like a kid who just finished watching all the episodes of Star Wars Rebels and thinks that, like Ezra Bridger, there might be a hidden Jedi temple right in his backyard of his home planet the whole time. And yes, more E.T. style lighting design, a nighttime crash site in the woods lit only by the headlights of vehicles and flashlights that are pointing directly at camera. As they peer into the ship, a little rat or an insect scurries past the camera. I love it. Today's video is sponsored by Blue Chew. It's summer, it's hot. You're forgiven if you're just feeling drained by the constant heat. When your heat exhaustion turns into meat exhaustion, it's time for Blue Chew. Blue Chew is a unique online service that delivers the same active ingredients as Viagra, Cialis, and Levitra, but in chewable tablets and at a fraction of the cost. Blue Chew's tablets are made in the USA and prepared and shipped direct to your door in a discreet package. It's super easy too. Just sign up at BlueChew.com, consult with one of their licensed medical providers, and once you're approved, you'll receive your prescription within days. It's all done online. That means no visits to the doctor's office, no awkward conversations, and no waiting in line at the pharmacy. You can take Blue Chew anytime, day or night. That way you can plan ahead or be ready for whenever an opportunity arises. If you're skeptical or don't think you need it, try it free for a month and see. Blue Chew wants to help you have better sex. Discover your options at BlueChew.com. And we've got a special deal for our listeners. Try Blue Chew free when you use our promo code New Rockstars at checkout. Just pay $5 shipping. That's BlueChew.com, promo code New Rockstars to receive your first month free. Visit BlueChew.com for more details and important safety information, and we thank Blue Chew for sponsoring this video. On to the next clip. Okay, the kids activate the ship. There are some shots of them sliding down a chute or a sloped surface, kind of like that random fun water slide sequence in Goonies. The ship's hull breaks apart and steam blows. This ship, according to Lego leaks, is called the Onyx Cinder. Inside, they find the skeleton covered in cobwebs. This is our one-eyed Willy of the show, the titular skeleton of the skeleton crew, the pirate skeleton sought by the kids. But whereas finding one-eyed Willy came at the end of the Goonies, here the skeleton is like the beginning of the adventure. Skeleton crew would be like Goonies if the kids stay on board the Inferno pirate ship as it embarked into the Pacific after the cop was like, Holy Mary, Mother of God. So what pirate was this? You may think Hondo Anaka, or could it be connected to Gorday Shard from The Mandalorian Season 3? As the camera moves up the body, it looks like he died by being stabbed in the chest. Most of the back of the skull is missing or rotted away and has a spooky light cast down on him that doesn't match the lighting of the surrounding controls. A one-eyed droid activates. I think this is SM-33, the decrepit droid, first mate of the Onyx Cinder, droid voiced by Nick Frost. I think he is kind of like the Smee to the Captain Hook. It actually makes me wonder that whoever this pirate captain was might have been played or voiced by Simon Pegg, who is a recurring face and voice to Lucasfilm, because it just makes sense that where Nick Frost is, Simon Pegg is not that far away. The four kids blast off into hyperspace from the Onyx Cinder, and no matter anytime we see this as Star Wars, I'm gonna love a punch-it shot. It's always great. And this little detail, as it zips away from us in space, before the "this December" text, the ship leaves some debris in space because it's all still covered in dirt and dust and tree roots. Okay, next clip.
We're lost. Really lost.
'Tis dangerous out there in space. Trust no one.
The Onyx Cinder rejoins a fleet of other pirate ships in an asteroid belt base. These ships' hulls match the paint job of the Corsair, the Cumulus-class destroyer piloted by a Captain Gorday Shard around this time in history that appeared in The Mandalorian Season 3 during the attack on Navarro. So this pirate skeleton could have been someone in Gorday Shard's ranks, maybe his predecessor, maybe one of his rivals. We know from a display at D23 that Vane, one of the pirates in Gorday Shard's gang, will appear in this series, along with a pirate who is the Grand species and a Shistavanen species. That's the wolf-like species that appeared in the Mos Eisley Cantina in the original cut of the 1977 film. Hey, remember when I thought Marok in Ahsoka was going to be a Shistavanen because like Dave Filoni's obsessed with wolves? Whoops. We actually see this guy firing blasters a little later in the trailer, but Vane in that display has a foot perched on a briefcase full of gold. So this is gonna be like a classic pirate story with booty. Also, the backdrop behind Jude Law at D23 showed what looks like this pirate fleet from the point of view of that base that they're docked at. It's all strung together with cables and rigging that looks like a port town and docks where pirate ships have moored up. It all looks so great. So we see the four kids climbing up this ridge and looking down into what might be a mining site or maybe just a place where these pirates are digging for that treasure. Then there's a shot of this little dude in a cage. It kind of looks like Fuzzball, Captain EO's sidekick from the Captain EO film. So Captain EO was a 3D short film starring Michael Jackson, directed by Francis Ford Coppola and produced by Disney and Lucasfilm that aired at Disney parks from 1986 to 1998, and then it was actually brought back to Tomorrowland in 2010 following Michael Jackson's death. It's a musical short film with some original songs featuring Jackson as EO and a bunch of alien puppets facing down an evil empress played by Angelica Houston. It's one of these just weird little pieces of Lucasfilm and Disney lore, and I really think this guy in the trailer is just a Fuzzball Easter egg, and I hope that's it, but you never know. Some online are going as far to speculate that all of the skeleton crew could be a Captain EO prequel, and Wim could grow up to be Michael Jackson's character Captain EO. Neil could grow up to be Hooter. I don't want that for this kid's future. There's a shot of a couple Jawas at a bar, and then just like a lot of quick shots of goofy pirate fun stuff. Like we see this figure as a voice says, "'Tis dangerous out there in space." And he says "'tis" because that's how pirates talk, right? We see fingers of a giant warship crushing the onyx cinder or just squeezing it. And then this owl-like creature descending on a mechanical arm. This guy was actually on the D23 poster, so I figure they're gonna be important. Irish actor Carrie Condon and Steve Urkel actor Jaleel White are confirmed to be in the series in unannounced roles. So, I'm kind of trying to imagine this owl with an Irish voice or saying, "Did I do that?" SM33 or SME, if you spell it all out, warns, "Trust no one." Then a shot of a giant crustacean creature because it wouldn't be a pirate story without a proper space kraken. Even Goonies had a deleted sequence with a giant octopus, and Wim gets to live out his dreams and rise up in a gunner seat. Meanwhile, KB watches as two X-Wings fly overhead. I think these might be Captains Carson Teva and Trapper Wolf, the New Republic X-Wing pilots played by Paul Sun-Hyung Lee and Dave Filoni in the Mandalorian series, just because we are set in that same era and Filoni is gonna take any chance he can to cameo as an X-Wing pilot. On to the last clip.
You're a Jedi.
Okay, we see a key seemingly force lifted into a prison cell. Is it not another Disney pirate reference to the pirates in the prison cell trying to lure the dog to bring them the keys in Pirates of the Caribbean? Something that was both in the ride and in the movie. Jude Law is playing a character named Jod Na Nawud, a confirmed force user, but described as Law as a quick thinker who uses his charm to get out of different scenarios. That does not sound like a Jedi to me. I don't think he's a Jedi, but Wim thinking that he's a Jedi could be another example of that wishful thinker kid wanting him to be a Jedi. And this is just an untrained Force user who applies the Force for deceit and piracy. He's kind of like a Captain Jack Sparrow rogue who may lie to Wim that he is a Jedi and then break the kid's heart at some point. Now, this show's working title was Grammar Rodeo, which is a reference to the Simpsons episode Bart on the Road, when Bart, Milhouse, Nelson, and Martin go on a road trip using the alibi of a National Grammar Rodeo, one of my favorite episodes of The Simpsons. And it just shows that John Watt's heart and humor are in the right place for this. Comment down below with what you're most looking forward to from this trailer. Follow me at Erik Voss. Subscribe to all 3 channels on the New Rockstars network for breakdowns and news coverage of everything you love. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.